by the authority of the court on high, and by the authority of this court below, with divine consent and with the consent of this congregation, we grant permission to pray with those who have transgressed.
Amen.
God of the faithless and God of the faithful. With doubt we come, and loneliness we wait silently. We pray, expecting nothing, wanting everything. God of the faithful and God of the faithless, you who speak, you whisper silence, you whose reason is mystery. Your order is infinite. Remember, we are finite and need words and reason. God of the faithless and God of the faithful, God in all forms and formless, who was and is and will be, hear us and turn. You may be seated. I invite Joel Singh, our CBI president, to share some remarks.
Thank you, Rabbi, and Lord, when I started writing tonight's speech, I had a dilemma. How should a new president approach his first Kol Nidre speech? Should he be light and humorous or deep and insightful? To answer the question, I searched not the Talmud, but the 21st century ultimate authority, Google. I found most Kol Nidre speeches were long, too long, and they all asked for money. I decided with deference to the pandemic that my speech tonight should be under 5 minutes, and you can relax because I'm not going to ask for money. I thank each of you for being devoted to CBI, for sharing your talents and making generous gifts of your money and your time. I'm pleased to report that CBI is in very good health. Its future is bright, thanks to you. If I were to describe the most important attribute of CBI, is a community that cares about others. Whenever a member becomes ill or dies, or there's a serious community problem, you will always volunteer to help. When CBI has had financial issues, members are always there to provide sustenance. As a new president, I appreciate that members and past presidents were always ready to lend a hand. We are fortunate that we have a caring clergy, staff, trustees, and members. My ask tonight is not about money. I'm asking something more valuable. I'm asking for your time. I would like each of you to commit to becoming a more active member. We have opened the channels to make you help make this happen. First, when you came in tonight, hopefully you received one of these booklets, a program guide that Maureen, Session, and Rabbi put together of events that they expect to do in the first half of the year. I would like each of you, these events are free, interesting, and will add to your knowledge of Jewishness. But guys, if you didn't get one tonight, or you're watching virtually, these will be mailed in the next week or so. Second, you received by mail an engagement card and letter from Susan Levine. We ask you to review the card and letter and push down one or two tabs of activities that resonate with you. Some of these activities are purely social events. Others are volunteering in the CBI office or performing a mitzvah project. Still others are to learn more about being a Jew. You can return the card to the office or complete an online form. If you brought the card with you tonight, there's a box outside that you can deposit it. If you have questions about activities that are on the card, or you have suggestions of activities that are not on the card, call Susan Levine or myself. Finally, there are volunteer activities that you don't know about yet. Stephanie Stein, our fundraising vice president, is planning a new fundraising event in a few months in early 2022. Like the former Gifts and Crafts show, this event will be fun, raise money, and bring many of us together to work as a team. An even bigger event will be CBI's 100th anniversary in early 2023, which is not that far off. You can be sure that there will be lots of activities around this anniversary, but because we're celebrating 100 years, it's going to take more than one night. In conclusion, we ask you to continue building CBI by participating in activities that will enhance your Jewish knowledge, provide a better community, and have fun with other members. Again, thank you for being a CBI member. I wish you an easy fast.
Tell me, God, the measure of my days, that I would know how fleeting my life is. What then should I hope for, God? Only that you save me from the consequences of my sin. You observe my walking and my lying down. You are familiar with my ways. There is no word on my tongue but that you, O God, know it well. Where can I escape? Where can I flee from your presence? I was never concealed from you. Even as I was being shaped in places, knit together in the recesses of this earth. It is you who created my innermost ability to feel. You fashioned me in my mother's womb. Examine me now, God. Look into my heart. And if you see within me cause for sadness, guide me toward eternal truth. Hear my prayer. Make me an instrument of your salvation, that we may be redeemed before I go away and then no more. I want to thank Joel for sharing those inspiring words and acknowledging what it is to be a community and the way that we have worked through all that has been and through all that will be to ensure that this is a house of vibrancy, house of love, house of prayer, house of celebration, house of joy. So I'll share a few words. And I'll start with a joke. When clothing was made by hand, the rabbi asked the tailor to make a pair of pants in time for the Passover service. 6 weeks went by, and the rabbi started to get a little nervous. He had no pants. 2 hours. 2 hours before the Seder, the tailor came running in with the pants. And the rabbi was ecstatic. But then he said to the tailor, God made the world in 6 days, and it took you 6 weeks to make a pair of pants. And the tailor said, well, look at the problems of the world, and look at how perfect these pants are. So today we're wearing kittles. You can't see how perfect the pants are. We stand and pray to the Holy One. We gather to acknowledge our imperfections, to imagine a world filled with redemption, where every one of us can live in peace. But we know that that journey is not straightforward. It has twists and turns. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter lived in Lithuania, or what is now Lithuania, it wasn't at the time, in the 19th century, and founded the modern Hussar movement, a movement focused on ethics and contemplation of mindfulness. He really encouraged people to look internally at their character, to see how they could improve themselves incrementally. And he shared a story. He said, when I was a young man, I wanted to change the world. But I found it was difficult to change the world. So I tried to change my country. And then I found I couldn't change my country, so I began to focus on my town. Well, I discovered that I couldn't change my town, so as I grew older, I tried to change my family. But as an old man, he said, I realized the only thing I can change is myself. But I've come to recognize that if, a long time ago, I had started with myself, I might have made an impact on my family. And my family and I might have made an impact on the town. And that, in turn, could have changed the country. And we could have indeed changed the world. So in true rabbinic fashion, I share that story not because I entirely agree with it, but I think it offers a lesson nonetheless. I believe with all of my heart that we really can change the world, but also that we do need to work within our own souls. Well, there are so many examples that would challenge that text. I want to share a personal one right from our own community. One of our own community's members has worked in these last few weeks, in the days leading up to the U.S. pullout from Afghanistan. And, when I talked to them, they said, I'm just doing what anyone would do. But not anyone has the networks of people online and, real actual human beings that were partnering to bring people from Afghanistan into this country. And they then partnered with Gulf Coast, which has helped us partner with Hyatt, and managed to bring out a number of lawyers and academics to give them another shot at life, which they wouldn't have in this Taliban. And like so many heroes, they didn't recognize how great of an endeavor and how great a miracle their work was. As it says in our tradition, to save one life is to save an entire world. And through those people, they helped to bring quite a number of people over. And that's something. They could have said, it's so far away, I can't do anything about that. But they had a personal connection with someone. Said, how can I let this person stay in a terrible situation? I'm going to do everything I can to make their life better. And they did. And they have. And they are. It is absolutely humbling to see the incredible work that any one of us can do, both in that internal spiritual work and changing the world. Now, some of it seems to be just being in the right place at the right time, or so we think. But it takes a lot of work to be in the right place at the right time. And to be able to see that when you are in that right place, that it is that 8th Ratzon. And sometimes it is just looking around and realizing that you are the one in that right place. And you are the one who is making it the right time. So I think about our daily prayer. Ribbon Kol Olamim, Lord of the world, not on account of our righteousness do we offer our prayers before you, but on account of your abundant mercy. Ma'anu, ma'hayenu, ma'hazenu, ma'tzikenu, ma'yishenu. What are we? What's our life? What are our acts of kindness? What are our righteousness? What is our deliverance? And after that seemingly depressing given to us. Aval anachnu, amcha b'nei britecha, we are the children of your covenant, the children of Abraham, your beloved. And because of that gift of covenant, because of that gift of peoplehood, we are to praise you and glorify you and sanctify you and offer praise and thanks to your name, and to say morning and evening, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And every time I read this prayer, I see it as a challenge. It takes us down and then brings us up again. It acknowledges the feeling that we might have had this year. Are we worth it? What are we doing here? Do we really merit another year? And the answer is clear and resounding. Yes. You're worth it. You are worth it. You have a purpose. You have a meaning. You have a drive for this year to come. And like those perfectly tailored pants, it may take a little while for some of us to figure out what that purpose is, what that meaning is, but we're here and ready. And I look to our Haftarah tomorrow morning. Our Haftarah tomorrow is really, in some ways, a bomb thrown in the middle of the service. Here we are thinking so highly of ourselves, we're fasting, we're praying, we're acknowledging all that is wrong. And what is the Haftarah that we say? What's the Haftarah I hear Steve saying it, Is this the fast I desire? A day for people to starve their bodies as if bowing the head like a bulrush and lying in sackcloth and ashes. You call that a fast? A day when the Lord is favorable? No. No! This is the fast I desire. Unlock the fetters of wickedness. Untie the cords of the yoke. Let the oppressed go free. Share your bread with the hungry. Take the poor. Not just the poor, the wretched poor. Not the ones that are deserving or appropriate or well-behaved. Take the ones who don't deserve it at all, says the Torah. Says the Haftarah. When you see the naked, you don't sit there and say, oh, what did you do? Do you deserve it? It says, clothe them. Don't ignore your own kin. Don't ignore your own kin. This Haftarah, in the middle of a day of personal confession, a day of personal prayer, a day of personal acknowledgement of where we fall short and how we hope to do better, says, and perhaps a little conflict with Rabbi Salanter, it's not just about us. It says we're in it together. It demands that we look out for one another, as Joel said, that we have a holy community, that when someone is ill, we say, how can we help? You need some chicken soup. Can you have a visit? The visit's a little more complicated these days, but we make it work. It demands that we stand by one another. It demands that we help those in need. So Monday, I got a text from Reverend Irby, works with the police department as a minister in the community, and said, we need a few more people. The St. Pete Police has their monthly cooperation with Meeting Tampa Bay, actually right around the corner from my kid's school on 18th Street South. And they have this, drive-through food bank with the food in the trunk of people's cars. And it's yesterday afternoon. And I get this text Monday, and I say to myself, could there possibly be a more inconvenient time for a rabbi to go and do volunteer anything? It is the least, if I was planning, that is absolutely not the time that I would be doing it. But I got a text that said we need help. I couldn't say no. Hadn't finished the sermon yet. But I said, I gotta go. So I did. And now I have a sore arm from trying to put 500 pounds of potatoes in plastic bags. I did learn the farther deep you go, when you're dealing with a sack, a thing of potatoes that is this wide and, as tall as I am, they get a little soggier at the bottom. The top level was much better. So I learned something new. Hopefully they like the potatoes. But that, I'm not standing here to pat myself on the back. I'm standing here to say, sometimes when we get the call, even when it's inconvenient, we say yes. So when Bill calls you and says we need help somewhere, say yes. So I think about what it means to be a Jew. I think about what it means to be a Jew as we're standing here, as we're sitting here, as we're standing here, as we're sitting here on this holiday. And I know that for some people they say, oh, okay, Reform Jews, that's the social justice one. Orthodox is the ones that focus on halacha. What is this conservative Judaism? Is this just some wishy-washy thing in the middle? Reform 10 years behind? That's not how I see it. That's not how I see it at all. Conservative Judaism is the acknowledgement of the law and the Spirit. It is celebrating all that is amazing and wonderful with our tradition, and acknowledging that our world does not look exactly the same as it did 3,000 years ago or even 30 years ago. It is more than tradition and change. It is more than emet and emunah. It is authentic, dynamic, passionate Judaism. It's an acknowledgement that Judaism is greater than the soul, the sum of its parts, that our relationships with the divine may be unique, but that we are better than when every single Jew in this room has a voice. When faced with COVID, my colleagues knew from the kishkas, from the gut, that we needed to do a minyan, not just with physical bodies in the room. But it wasn't enough to just say, this is what we need to do. We needed to be able to say we were doing it in accordance with tradition. That there was a process of rabbis looking at the Gemara, looking at Talmud, looking at historical practices from around the world in times of crisis, and saying, how can we apply what has happened to us before to this challenging and unique situation? And while the process took more than a few weeks, when I look back, the same was true when the seminary began admitting women in 1985 or LGBTQ students in 2005. It was an evolving process that took into account the halakha, that took into account the social and the human history of the Jewish people. It was trying to do the right thing in the right way. The way that we have. Acknowledging the world change, because the thing is, Judaism has always acknowledged the world around us. And I think, I'm going to have that for a second here. I think back to the destruction of the temple. And we could have said, that's it. The temple is destroyed. Judaism is done. Let's all become Romans. We could have done that. But we didn't. We had a bunch of men at the time, who got together and said, how do we live a Jewish life in the absence of the temple? And they made it work. Sometimes it was messy. Sometimes they didn't agree. Heck, most of the time, they didn't agree. We're Jews. But they made it work. And that's what we continue to do today. We don't say that in 1600, with the invention of the Shulchan Aruch, halakha is closed, we're done. We don't say, well, the Shulchan Aruch is from the 16th century, it's totally irrelevant to our lives, we don't need it anymore. We say we need it, And we need it to be relevant today. To be a Masorti, to be a conservative Jew, means to engage with tradition. And that's what we try to do here. It means to participate in human life, in Jewish life, at home and at shul. It means to be part of that community, as Joel said. It means to help one another when you need help, to cry together, to laugh together, to dance together, and please God, before too long, to eat together, because I don't know how to be a Jew if I can't have chicken soup with you. To be a Jew, although if anyone saw the thing going around about gefilte fish pizza, I have zero interest in that. Look, two good things individually does not mean that they go together. To be a Jew is to be connected to God and Torah and Israel. And as a conservative Jew, it means that we wrestle with all of those things. You know, for some of the people in this room and in all of your rooms at home, God is an active participant in their lives, someone they speak to regularly and accept answers from. Others, God is the good that they do. God is a verb and envisioned in a far less theistic answer. We can define Torah expansively or narrowly, only the words in that Sefer, or all of the wisdom of Jewish tradition. Israel is the land and the people. It is all of us and the place that we call home. To be a conservative Jew is to be engaged in all of these holy endeavors. It doesn't mean we agree with them at all times. It doesn't mean that everything that happens in the name of someone Jewish is something we accept. But it does mean that we consider and reconsider to improve them and us, as Rabbi Salanter said. We start at home with our own souls, but then we have to continue to do the work outside. So standing before you, sharing this offering of my heart and my soul, I pray that you continue to join us in this year. Commit yourself to engagement, and you'll find meaning along the way. Together, we'll build a community of love, of passion, of practice, of excitement, of joy, of self-awareness, of compassion, of hope, of learning, of study, of Torah, of Israel, of God, of people, peoplehood, of Yiddishkeit. We'll start right here, and we'll continue to create beauty and holiness in ever-expanding circles until we truly change the world. And it may take us more than a few months to sow those stamps, but I think they'll look pretty darn good when we're done. Gamar Chatimat Tova, may you be sealed in the book of life. Okay, you can go home now. Kidding.
Oh.
We turn now to the service of this evening. We will rise to the Baruch, page 207. Shem Kavod all year round. For those and the conservative Orthodox world, we only say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchut Le'olam Va'ed after the Shema on Yom Kippur. So it is out of our normal feeling, out of our normal practice, but that is a way of speaking of God's great and powerful name to acknowledge God's kingship on this holy night.
Mi
We will be doing confession immediately following it, so confess at your own pace, but no, you'll get another shot if we interrupt you. So we'll rise, page 212, Erev Yom Kippur. acknowledging God's mercy with the 13 attributes of the Holy One. We acknowledge our own imperfections leading up to the Ashamnu, to our confession of sins and justification. We'll turn to page 225 on the Shama. Read responsibly on the other side of the page. We come before you relying on who you are. You are known as gracious, compassionate God. Your way is to be patient with sinners, not only with the righteous. That is the source of our praise for you. Grant relief to this driven leaf. Have compassion on that which is but dust and ashes. Page 226. God, you are patient, you are known as the source of mercy. You taught the way of repentance today and every day. Call to mind with wonder your compassion and mercy for the children of those you love. Turn toward us in mercy, for you are the source of mercy. We approach your presence with supplication and prayer with the words you revealed to Moshe, the humble one long ago. Turn away from wrath and let us nestle under your wings, as is written in your Torah about the day that God descended and a cloud will rise in the middle of the page. the words that speak to one of us don't always speak to all of us. And so imagining God in all these different ways, it helps us connect. Page 227. Even before I came to be, your kindness accompanied me. For from nothing you formed me. Who was it who fashioned me? Spun the clay, fire the kiln, pardon me. Who breathed life into me, opened the belly of the deep, pulled me out? Who guided me from childhood to today, gave me understanding, filled me with wonder? Though I am but clay in your hands, was it not you who made me? Truly you, not me. Yet I confess my sin, and I do not say that I was fooled by another who beguiled me. Why would I try to hide my sin from you? For even before I came to be, your kindness accompanied me. Terem hayoti azdecha ani. You turn to page 232 for the next cycle, the 13 attributes of faith. God, sovereign, who sits on the throne of mercy, acting with unbounded grace, forgiving the sin of your people one by one as each comes before you, generously forgiving sinners and pardoning transgressors, acting charitably with every living thing. Do not repay them who are there with peace. May you forgive your people who have sinned against you. Salvation is Adonai's alone for blessing on your people forever. Adonai, save us. Surely the Sovereign One will respond to you on the day we call out. As befits your abundant love, please forgive the people's sin as you have always forgiven the people from the time of the Exodus from Egypt until now. And when Moshe recited that prayer, it was recorded by Yomer Adonai Salachti Yibracha, forgive as you ask. We turn to page 233, we'll open the Ark for consolation. Our God, God of our ancestors, do not abandon us, do not forsake us, do not shame us, do not annul your covenant with us. Draw us close to your Torah, teach us your mitzvot, show us your ways, open our hearts to revere your name, circumcise our hearts to love you, and we will turn to you faithfully with a perfect heart. And as befits your great name, pardon and forgive our sins, as the psalmist wrote, Salachti Avoni Kira Hu. We'll sing together on page 234.
Eloheinu, Elohei Avoteinu, Selachanu ve'amanu, Kahelanu, Iyanu v'amecha, ve'ata Eloheinu, Anu v'amecha.
obstinate, and you are patient. We are sinful, and you are merciful. Our days are a passing shadow, but you are the one who truly is for time without end. Our God and God of our ancestors, hear our prayer, do not ignore our plea. Our God and God of our ancestors, who are neither so insolent nor obstinate as to claim in your presence we are righteous without sin, for we, like our ancestors, came before us with sin. The Vidui that we continue with, we say here and at the time of our death. Judaism gives us a liturgy of scripts right before someone dies. In the last moments, we're given an opportunity to take account of our lives, to confess, and be forgiven. Some have witnessed this moment and been with someone in their last moments. For some, that moment may have been this year. Some have never been in the presence of death. But there's a sense that it feels like we are all born to witness death. And for this year, death and the anticipation of it has felt vivid and present for so many of us. Yom Kippur is designed to offer us the experience of a deathbed ritual without having actually to be at our deathbed. And there's a clarity that comes when we face our mortality. When we face death, we can see who we have been and what we wish we could have been. On Yom Kippur, we approach the edge of the abyss, and we peek. And then we turn back. We use what we saw to motivate ourselves to make the changes we need. The rituals of Yom Kippur are practice for death. We fast, we wear white burial shrouds, we recite the Vidui. They're designed to pull us out of our daily routines, to put us into this moment, to confront our own death. But the purpose of Yom Kippur death rituals is not just to face mortality, but to grow from the experience of facing mortality. What we've been practicing all these years of deathbed ritual drama is not how to die, but how to live once we've stared into that abyss. The Vidui is not a reminder that we will die. It's a reminder that we are alive. My colleague, Rabbi Avi Philip, also grew up in Atlanta. Now she lives in Riverdale. She said, we've all taken a beating this year. And instead, as you beat your chest today, don't think of it as self-punishment or self-flagellation, but think of it as CPR. Think of it as resuscitation. We are bringing ourselves back to life. We are waking our heart up and reminding ourselves that we are in fact alive. And the question then becomes, what do we do with this renewed life? What do we do with this chance? We turn to page 235 and we rise for the adoption.
Yeah.
ritual sins. There's a few of those in there. But the vast majority of these sins are about how we interact with one another. Because when we cause harm to those that we love and those we don't love so much, we are also causing harm to the Holy One, to our own relationship with God. So we, of course, have to work first to gain atonement from those that we have hurt. And only then do we come before God and stand here saying, all of us, in all of the Jewish world cumulatively, have committed all of these sins. And we all have to take responsibility for what we have done so that we can make a tikkun and find healing for them. Page 237. We've sinned against you by plotting against others. We have sinned against you through superficiality. We have sinned against you by rushing to do evil. We have sinned against you through empty promises. We have sinned against you by betraying trust. God of mercy, who who answers the poor, answer us. God of mercy, who answers the brokenhearted, Anenu. God of mercy, pity us. God of mercy, save us. We will open the ark, page 243, for Avinu Malkeinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Matan Levanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Eino Melech Elata. Avinu Malkeinu, Aseh Iman Leman Shelecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Anesh Avinu Shalat Olam. Avinu Malkeinu, Al-Nazirenu B'Tshuvah Shlema Lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Shelach Refuah Shlema Lebanei Amecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Zakrenu Zikaron Tov Lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Kodvenu B'Sefer Chaim Tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, Kodvenu B'Sefer Geulah V'Teshuvah.
variants and various versions of Bnai Malkeinu over the years. And in this particular version that was edited in the Siddur Matzah from 2010, they took out a line about Magifah, about plague. So there was a line in here, Bnai Malkeinu, keep us away from plague. Didn't seem so relevant in 2010. The interesting thing is that 1,000 years before, it wasn't keep us away from plague because it was just assumed that there was always a plague. So it was actually, in an earlier edition, stop the plague. And the line stop the plague was just there for hundreds of years until such time as we felt, okay, there are not as many plagues anymore, we can go from stop the plague to keep the plague away. So what a life that we have lived, that for much of our lives, it really is a miracle. That for the last 100 years in this country, I don't say worldwide, in this country, with the advent of vaccines and other amazing medical technology, antibiotics and ventilators, and it's amazing all of the ways that we are alive today. I would be dead 1,000 different ways if not for modern medicine. And I think if we were to look around this room, pretty much all of us are only here because of the miracles of modern medicine. And so it is, to me, the liturgy, the prayers that we say, recognize, this is not just conservative Judaism, this is historical Judaism, have always recognized the reality that was around us. And of course, the biggest challenge is once you put something in, is the getting out of it. There were great Machzor wars in the early part of the 20th century over whose Machzor was the Machzor HaShalem, the complete Machzor. And so this one would say, I found this feud from 13th century Spain, we need to have that one in. And then the other one would say, you found that one? Well, I'll one up you, I'll find this feud from 14th century Spain. And this is what happened over generations, the publishers from the last 100 years, ink was cheap, so the Machzor just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So over the last, in the Masorti conservative movement, they said, okay guys, there's got to be a line somewhere. We don't need every feud that has ever been written. At some point, we all want to go home and take a nap. So, we'll turn now to page 245 for Kaddish. I have to say, we're doing the Hasidic Kaddish. This is my favorite Kaddish. So. Grant that the memories of those who have gone before us to be a source of strength for us and for all in the house of Israel. May the souls of our departed find peace in your sheltering care, and may we be blessed with peace, tranquility, and fullness of life. Kaddish, you are serving, please say with me on 247. Yitzchadal, Yitzchadash, Shemerabah. Yamah, Yirah, Ruteh, Yamrit, Mahuteh. Makayachon, Yamachon, Kayeh, Kol Nidre Service. Magalah, Kuhan, Karim, Yirah, Amen. Yesh, Shalom, Shalom, Yitzhak, Yishabat, Yitzhar, Yitzramah, Yitnaseh. Yitzhadar, Yitzhalek, Yitzalam, Shmei, Yusha, Yirah. La'ela, La'ela, Mikol, Berkata, B'shirata, B'shbekata, Nechemata, Aram, Yamah, Yimru, Amen. Yehi, Shalom, Rabbi, Shemaya, Ayim, Amen, Yachol, Yisrael, Yimru, Amen. Loseh, Shalom, Rama, Kuyah, Shalom, Aleinu, Yachol, Yisrael, Yimru, Amen. We may be seated. The announcement is it's Yom Kippur. Don't forget. Come back tomorrow. Services will begin at 8:30 in the morning. The youth service will be outside at 10 o'clock, weather permitting. If the weather doesn't permit, well then there will not be an outside youth service. That's the rain plan. So hopefully it will rain. The afternoon, we'll go on for a nice time in the morning, and then we'll come back again tomorrow afternoon at 5 for Mincha and the book of Yonah, and then in the evening, the Nehila will be about 7:15, and the shofar will be about 8:16. So we'll conclude our service with the Yigdal, page 250. We'll do it tomorrow.